What up, everybody? How you doing? Happy Hump Day. As you can see, it is boys' night out here. Adriana is she's at the Senior Bowl, hopefully giving Joe Schoen really good insight on what the hell to do, because Lord knows Joe Schoen needs all the help he can get. So anytime
that intro gets me pumped up every time I hear it.
It's a good intro.
I love that intro. I love maybe slightly too long, but the music gets me rolling. I love it.
Nah, it's good. Allows you, if you gotta use the bathroom, whatever. 2 minutes is good. 2 minutes.
2 minute warning.
I think it's a good time. Yeah, 2 minute warning, exactly. All right, fellas. Obviously, there's not a ton to discuss as we are at the dead point kind of in the football season. There's one game left. And obviously, February doesn't a lot happen. I can't talk. Not a lot happens. March, obviously, the combine hits, free agency hits, and then we're rock and roll. Then we really got a lot of stuff to talk about. But before we get into some Giants stuff, Anthony, we'll start with you. For me, Sunday was a horrible day of football. Eagles, Chiefs. I don't think that is good for anybody except for the fan bases of those selective teams. What's your feeling on the Super Bowl, if you have one?
Yeah, I mean, the nightmare scenario. I wanted to see the Bills make it, and I much preferred the Commanders to make it over Philadelphia. But listen, I got to say go Chiefs, because there's no way in hell that I can root for the Eagles. So I'm rooting for the Chiefs. Me and all the other millions of Swifties in the world who are just jumping on the bandwagon, I'm alongside them.
Yeah, I'm a Swiftie. I'm a Swiftie on February 9th. Chris, how do you feel about the Super Bowl?
Yeah, we have no choice. As Giants, I laugh at Giants fans that are like, oh, I can't root for the Chiefs because I don't like Pat Mahomes and I don't like that they get calls and I don't like Taylor Swift. I'm a Giants fan, man. Like it's not even a question. You always root against the Philadelphia Eagles. You always root against the Dallas Cowboys. So yeah, I am a heavy fan this week of the Kansas City Chiefs. Both teams that I thought were going to win won, unfortunately, because I was actually rooting the other way in both games. I'm not like a Chiefs hater, like I think a lot of people seem to be at this point. I just want something different. So I was rooting for Buffalo. I'm a big Josh Allen fan, and they came up short. At the end of the day, Allen played really well, but at the end of the day, he had the ball. I think he had a 3rd and 5, 4th and 5. He couldn't convert. He couldn't make the play that needed to put him over the hump, and that's going to continue to be it's kind of like Peyton Manning. It reminds me of Peyton Manning early on in his career, where he couldn't get the monkey off his back. He couldn't get past Tom Brady. That's what Pat Mahomes is going to be for Josh Allen until he beats him. So he's going to have more and more mounting pressure. As far as the Eagles go, they destroyed Washington. It wasn't particularly close. You knew that game was trending towards being over around halftime. So they're going to be tough to beat. But where my head is, bad dog, is Andy Reid, in my opinion, is the best coach in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
You give him 2 weeks to prepare for a game with Pat Mahomes. I will take my odds on that. I will take my chances that the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid will outcoach Nick Sirianni and the Philadelphia Eagles, especially with an extra week to prepare. Saquon Barkley looks lethal. He was incredible in that game. Eagles have a great offensive line, but I'll tell you what, the Chiefs defense impressed me too. Josh Allen got stuffed 4 times on the tush push. They said during the broadcast he'd only been stopped twice all year. So the Chiefs have a good defense too. I think it'll be lower scoring than maybe some think, but in the end, I think the Chiefs win.
And I don't know if he was stopped that one time. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Honestly, on 4th down, it shouldn't even come to that, because they had the first down anyway. The guy's knee was never down. It was a bad spot. Listen, man, anybody that knows me knows there's no question about this. The Chiefs could win 15 Super Bowls in a row. I still would be rooting for the Chiefs. It doesn't matter. You'll never catch me rooting for Philadelphia. You can't pay me enough. I shouldn't say that. You pay me enough, I'll just never say anything about Philadelphia again and not watch the NFL again. And we're talking like 8 figures, and you could get rid of me. Other than that, you couldn't make me root for Philadelphia. I don't give a damn what you do. Saquon Barkley this. Screw him. He's not a Giant. Don't care. This isn't about Saquon. This is about the jersey. It's about the Eagles. I hate the Eagles. I'll always hate the Eagles. I always have hated the Eagles. I don't care who they play. I'm always going to root for the AFC against any of our division rivals, because I ain't rooting for anybody in our division to win a damn Super Bowl except for us. So I never get on people. If you want to root for Philadelphia, fine. I personally don't understand.
I'm gonna get on him. I'm gonna get on him.
Okay.
You call yourself the shit out of him, and you root for the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl. I'm gonna get on you. That's sacrilegious. You can't do that.
It's like pineapple on pizza. Like, I don't know how people do it, Chris, and some people do it. It's wrong. But
that's
hey,
dead wrong. That's dead wrong.
It is what it is.
You want to do it in the regular season? It's still dead wrong, and I'm still gonna get on you. I'll give you a slight pass. You cannot do that in the Super Bowl. I don't care how much you like Saquon Barkley. It's the Philadelphia Eagles.
Right.
It's Nick Sirianni. You cannot pull for the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl if you're a Giants fan.
I agree. I totally agree. But this kind of leads me into my next point, which I want to talk about, and then we'll get to Mike Kafka. We'll talk about the mock drafts and stuff. So I put something on Twitter today that Xavier McKinney came out with. They didn't want me here. Now, you can take these players' interviews with a grain of salt. Saquon Barkley also kind of came out in an interview and said they didn't offer him what they said they offered him, and it's their story against his story. He's been playing the victim ever since he left here, which, listen, I don't care what people say. Everybody sees different things. To me, I looked at Saquon Barkley last year. I watched a guy that lost his explosiveness. He got caught from behind a lot. He wasn't the same player. He didn't run the same. He didn't finish his runs. He didn't do any of the stuff last year that we see him doing in Philadelphia. And I can remember week 1 when I did the Eagles and Packers saying Barkley looks like he's 15 pounds lighter. He looked a lot lighter. He looked very bloated with the Giants. He don't look that way with the Eagles. Do you think that Joe Schoen has an issue with why? It's hard for me to explain. Barkley was a leader, McKinney was a leader. Obviously, the Daniel Jones experiment failed. Do you think there's a problem with Joe Schoen and the players? Do you think there's a problem with player personnel? Do you think that they have some kind of issue where they don't want to play for him, or he's rude to them, or he disrespects them? It's hard for us to say because we're not in the locker room, but how do you feel his relationship with the players are?
I don't think they're great.
Hey,
I'll just jump in. I know that there was, you said it right there. We're not in the locker room, so we don't necessarily know, but at least the reporters who go into the locker room and who speak to people in the locker room, they have indicated that there is discontentment from the players towards the front office. I think it was Jordan Rannon of ESPN had that article during the season saying that Joe Schoen is not well liked by the players. A lot of them don't feel too great about him. And while Giants fans were kind of placing blame on Brian Daboll and making him out to be the villain, at least according to that report, it seemed like internally it was the locker room was fine with Daboll. It was Joe Schoen who was creating a lot of the problems. And I think that was most clearly evidenced by the McKinney and Barkley moves. Very quickly, as soon as those deals happened, you had the likes of Kayvon Thibodeau and other players expressing how frustrated they were with the fact that their 2 locker room leaders left, especially Saquon Barkley. And on top of that, there was the whole Nick McLeod drama during the middle of the season. McLeod wasn't a great player, and I understand that it's a business and it can be cutthroat and whatever. And I know there was reports later on that came out about how those negotiations went down. I think that there's an argument to keeping players in the locker room because it'll make everybody else happy. And I think that was the argument that I made at the time for Nick McLeod. Just keep him. No, he's not a good player. No, he's not winning you any games on Sundays. Whatever. Everybody in the locker room wants him there. So just let him stay around. What did the Giants save? $900,000? That's nothing when you're talking about NFL salaries. What did they reinvest that in? Jack shit. Just keep him in the locker room and keep everybody around him happy. I think that Joe Schoen doesn't understand that aspect of the team building. He preaches culture. He preaches the smart, tough, dependable thing, but he doesn't actually stand by it. He doesn't keep those smart, tough, dependable players in there. Those guys who keep everybody locked in and invested in the organization and in the culture. So I think he wants to preach culture. I don't think he knows how to build culture. And I think that's most clearly evidenced by his roster building, allowing leaders to walk in free agency like McKinney, like Barkley. I get it. The argument of positional value for both of those positions, safety and running back. Sometimes you pay up a little bit higher out of your price range because of the person and the leadership. And I know we've all kind of discussed that before, how there's been a disconnect between Barkley, the person, or McKinney, the person, versus the player, and the way that the Giants view those guys. But I really think that Joe Schoen does have a problem with that. And I think that's where a lot of the issues with the New York Giants organization have stemmed from over the last couple of seasons as things have gotten really ugly towards the tail end of these failed seasons.
Krista, what do you think his relationship is with the players?
I have frequently, I agree with a lot of what Anthony said. I frequently said, I think I think that's the biggest knock I have on Joe Schoen thus far. Now that's something he can get better on. We have to remember he's never been a general manager before. He's learning on the job, but I do think for sure, as much as I enjoy after having Dave Gettleman, having a general manager who values positional values that aspect of positional value, and he doesn't draft you. He would never be caught dead drafting a running back second overall. As much as I appreciate that, and I think it's important, I think there's a happy medium, and I think Joe Schoen has to learn that, and hopefully he gets better. Obviously, the locker room as a whole is not going to be good. The team's not winning football games, so it's always going to look bad in that scenario. What I'll say pertaining to your question specifically about Saquon Barkley and whether or not I think his performance last year had anything to do with his feeling towards Joe Schoen, I honestly don't. I think Saquon Barkley knew he was on a contract year. He was playing on the tag, and he didn't put his body on the line. The year before, he put his body on the line. He was taking shot after shot after shot. We saw it. We said it week after week after week. This wasn't the same Saquon Barkley we saw the week before. I can't kill Saquon for that. I understand it's a business. I understand you're playing on the tag. And I have frequently said, and I guess we'll talk about this later because I don't want to go on a long rant, but I have frequently said, I think Saquon Barkley and Joe Schoen had an agreement before the year started in 2023 that they were not going to tag Saquon Barkley or trade Saquon Barkley in season. Reason being why Saquon Barkley would want that, if you traded him in season, that team who acquired him would have had the ability to tag him. Why did Saquon Barkley show up to camp day one when every running back over the last 10 years, when they are on the tag, they hold out? Reason he did it, in my opinion, I think there was an agreement between Joe Schoen and Saquon Barkley that they wouldn't trade him in season, that they wouldn't tag him in the offseason, and that they'd let him test the open market. But I don't think Saquon Barkley's regression in play had much to do with the way that he felt about Joe Schoen. I think it more had to do with the fact that he knew he had a big payday coming up next offseason, and he didn't want to get hurt.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think we even might have mentioned that going into last year, that they must have had some kind of deal that said they wouldn't tag him again because he did show up immediately. His tag was 10 million, and they used some kind of incentives to get him up to like 10.9 or whatever, like the most they could, or 11, whatever it ended up being. And yeah, that probably was part of the deal, saying we're not going to tag you. If we can't get a deal done, then we're just going to, let you test the free agency market, which he did. And again, I'm not angry at Saquon for doing that. It is a business, and I understand he's human. I mean, if you're playing on a lousy team and, every week you're going in and you're the best player, and every week, no matter what you do, you're going to lose. Human nature is your effort, your performance is going to drop a little bit, as opposed to when you're inspired and you're ready to rock and roll and you're happy, you're going to perform better. So again, I'm not killing him for that.
No, the other thing that I meant to say as well, if we're going to be completely fair to Joe Schoen, and I think a lot of what Anthony said is warranted, especially this past offseason. Saquon Barkley, McKinney, you mentioned the safety incident. Like there was incidents where you question how he should value the locker room culture more than he did. I think that's a very fair criticism. I think that's the strongest criticism to date against Joe Schoen, probably even more so than his drafting, because this past year the draft was actually pretty good. He's showing at least some improvement there. He's got to get better in that aspect, no doubt about it. But if we're going to be completely fair, what did he do with Leonard Williams? He went out of his way to be pro player in that situation. He went to Leonard Williams before he traded him, and we actually were raving about that after his first year. So if you're going to criticize him for that, you also got to be fair. There are some aspects where he actually did a good job in that area.
Yeah,
true. And I'll actually add on to that one another piece of evidence if we want to be extra fair. Andrew Thomas is actually, if I remember correctly, the one that approached Joe Schoen and wanted to get his contract done early because he wanted to get the guarantees on his deal sooner rather than later in case of injuries. And Joe Schoen gave him that contract. He could have made him play another year and then given him the long-term deal and made him prove it one more season. I believe the way the story goes is that Andrew Thomas wanted to get that deal done sooner, took less average annual value in order to get the guaranteed money sooner rather than later. So I actually think that is a good point. I don't know what happened, though, because that was 2 years ago. Leonard Williams was 2 years ago. At some point, there was a change, though, and Joe Schoen has treated it more like a business and not a relationships business. And I think there's been some sort of regression there that doesn't necessarily make sense, but it definitely has had an adverse outcome for the New York Giants.
I'll tell you, maybe going into last year, I just remember saying something felt off. And Chris and I did this show at Patty Train. I mean, she didn't hear anything, but I swear that whole Barkley thing, getting tagged, and Jones getting a contract, I swear it divided the locker room. Now, I don't know anything about this, but I swear that there was some kind of – I'm not saying between Jones and Barkley at all, but I just feel like it kind of divided the locker room, the way they handle that situation. And again, I've given Joe Schoen the benefit of the doubt. I don't know what Joe Schoen could have done. They had to get this done. They couldn't tag both players. Barkley had already turned down multiple contracts, so you couldn't tag them both. Everybody that said they should have signed Barkley and they should have tagged Jones, you couldn't tag them both. I mean, they could have offered Barkley more guaranteed money. I guess that was a holdout. But hey, if Barkley was being completely honest, I want to be a Giant for life. I want to be the face of the Giants. I want to be in the Ring of Honor. Dude, a couple $1 million in the grand scheme of things you're not going to go, I'm throwing it all away for $2 million extra dollars or $3 million extra dollars, whatever it is. That's a lot of money to us. But in the grand scheme of things, you're talking 36, 38, 39, $40 million. The percentage really isn't that much. He could have got that $3 million back easily in other areas too. So, I don't know, man. The whole situation is a mess. I don't blame Barkley. People think I'm not mad at Barkley. I just hate that he went to Philadelphia. That's it. If he went anywhere else, man, I wish him nothing but the best. He's on our freaking enemy, man. I ain't rooting for my damn enemy at all. It's not happening. And by the way, guys, thank you for the super chats. Really appreciate it. We'll get to them in like 10 minutes. I just want to talk about, because Anthony brought this up before the screen, Mike Kafka. Obviously, he was interviewed with the Saints. I don't think Mike McCarthy's going to coach us here. So it takes a name out of the hat.
He said that he's not.
Right. Yeah. So I guess Kafka had an interview for like 9 hours with the Saints. Yeah. So it is very possible that he does get a head coaching job.
Who was the other guy? There was I read that somebody with the Saints is the front runner right now, and it's not Kafka. I can't remember who it is.
Kellen Moore.
That's
the offensive coordinator. Yeah, the three finalists are Kellen Moore, Mike Kafka, and it's Anthony Weaver, defensive coordinator of the Miami Dolphins.
So if
that's what I heard,
Moore is the front runner right now.
I'm gonna guess it's Kellen Moore. So,
but I've also seen chatter that Moore might not want the head coaching job because he's got a good thing going in Philadelphia. So then I think the second front runner is Mike Kafka. So all it takes is Kellen Moore to be like, I don't want it. And then it's very likely that Giants lose their OC and he gets the job. So,
okay. So let's look at it this way. Let's do both. Kafka gets the job. Just say Kafka gets a job. Who calls the plays for the Giants? And if Kellen Moore gets a job, does Brian Dable give Kafka the play calling duties back again? Anthony, what do you think?
I think that Dable is going to keep the plays if Kafka leaves. I don't think he's going to turn it over to quarterbacks coach Jay Tierney, which I know is going to be a hot name. But if Kafka stays, I think he takes the play calling duties because honestly, looking back to last year, he wants to call plays. He made that very clear by the fact that he wanted to go take that interview with the Seattle Seahawks, who were offering him an offensive coordinator job potentially where he would have been calling plays. So I think Kafka wants to call the plays, and I think he wants to do that, whether it's with the Giants or Seattle or New Orleans, doesn't matter. It's what he wants to do. So the fact that the Giants didn't let him do that last year was a little bit weird, and the fact that the results were as poor as they were tells me that they probably will let him do it this year if he's here. But if he leaves, I don't see a point in just rescinding play calling duties for the sake of it. If you're Brian Dable, if you feel like you have a better option in Kafka, then you let Kafka do it. If not, then I think you just maintain them and you keep calling the plays yourself.
Chris, how do you feel that'll play out?
Yeah, and the other silver lining I want to throw in there, which we've probably said on the show before, if Kafka does get that job, we get a compensation pick because he's a quarter Puerto Rican. Whatever. But as far as this is my theory on the Kafka situation. If I was Joe Schoen, I would want Kafka calling the plays, and I'm going to explain why, if he's back. Not to mention, I think Kafka is going to want to call the plays, regardless, right? Because he's somewhat in demand at this point. He's getting a lot of head coaching opportunities. And as a fan, even though I was in favor of Dable taking over the play calling duties, at this point, it didn't work last year. I think he needs to focus on being more of a head coach, more of a CEO to overlook everything. Still, obviously, have a lot of say in the offensive game plan week to week. That's his specialty. But I would prefer Kafka, if he is back, to be the play caller. But if I was Joe Schoen, a major reason why I would want Kafka being the play caller, there's a very good chance if the team sucks next year, there's going to be a ton of pressure to fire Brian Dable. I'm assuming Shane's going to be back. I know Anthony disagrees with me. I'm assuming Shane's going to be back if we draft a quarterback early in this year's draft. I'm not super sure about Dable if the team wins 4 games. But what was the one thing we were really concerned with and we hated, or at least I did. I know Bad Dog at the time you wanted to fire Shermer, but in hindsight, I think you kind of agreed with me that you thought it was a better idea to keep Pat Shermer for a second year with Daniel Jones because it was a catastrophe.
Because we got Joe Judge. So yeah, hindsight.
Yeah. If you give
Yes,
Kafka
I did not want Shermer staying around. No.
If you give Kafka the play calling duties, not that I'm advocating for this, not that I would be yelling for him to become the head coach if you fire Dable, but it at least gives you that option. And it doesn't break up. You don't have to worry about the quarterback having to learn a new playbook the next year if you were to transition Kafka to replace Dable, if you had to go that route. I'm not saying I'm calling for that. I'm hoping Dable gets to keep his job and the team has a great year. But at least if Kafka's calling the plays, it's a little bit more you have a little bit more of a rapport with a guy like a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward. He doesn't have to learn a whole new playbook. He doesn't have to get used to a whole new play caller. So it's at least an option. So I think it makes a world of sense, especially if you're drafting a rookie quarterback, knowing that there's a strong possibility Dable may not be long for this job, that Kafka does take over the play calling duties for the betterment of the rookie quarterback.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can see where I can understand where Anthony's coming from, though. If we do draft a quarterback and we suck, it's possible they all get fired and we draft another quarterback. Possible. I mean, that, and then the quarterback's starting fresh. I mean, it is very possible. It sucks. We're already talking about this going into the year. We haven't even got to the friggin' year yet. We're already talking about winning 4 games.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking long term.
No, I know, but this franchise is just in such complete disarray. It's
I mean, I'm excited for the quarterback. That's what I'm thinking about right now. That's where I think we're going. But when I think about these decisions, I think what could be an option long term if this were to be the case.
Speaking of quarterbacks, obviously there's reports coming out here. The GMs of the Browns and the Titans have said they're not sold on a quarterback. They want the best player available, generational talent. None of us think the quarterbacks are what we call generational talent in this possible. It could be smoke. This is a great time for smoke screens. It is possible that neither one of them take a quarterback. It is possible that the Raiders trade up. It's possible that anything happens.
It's possible we trade up.
What's that?
It's possible we trade up.
It's possible we trade up too. What I want to get out here, though, I think, Chris, we'll start with you this time. Last year, because I was thinking about this. Last year at this time, all we heard was how much they loved McCarthy. They're in love with McCarthy. They're hanging out with McCarthy. They're going to dinner with McCarthy. They're carrying McCarthy's bags. Not really, but you know what I'm saying. They were enamored. They were in love with McCarthy. They interviewed all the quarterbacks, and Brian Daboll said they're going to interview all the quarterbacks again this year. They need a quarterback. There's no question. There's no guessing here. We're taking a quarterback somewhere in this draft. Is it possible that they really do like Cameron Ward or another quarterback, and this is smoke with Shedeur Sanders, or do you think this is actually genuine? Because I swear, last year, when you look back at this J.J. McCarthy thing to me was smoke because they wanted Drake May or they wanted Jane Daniels. They wanted somebody else the Giants really like this kid. Let's take J.J. McCarthy, and somebody would have dropped to the Giants. You think that was chess? You think it's checkers? You think that I'm out thinking this?
I mean, I clearly see where you're going with that, and that's what good GMs do. They do play chess, and they do think 3 steps ahead. Joe Shane's not a very good GM right now, so he probably doesn't. But no, all kidding aside, I honestly think there was legitimate interest in J.J. McCarthy. It didn't mean that they were going to draft him, but I think they legitimately were doing their due diligence on him, knowing that they were never going to get Drake May, knowing that they were never going to get Jaden Daniels, and knowing they were more than likely never going to get Caleb Williams. So they were looking at all their potential options. So I don't think that was smoke. Personally, it could have been. We'll never know. I don't think the Shedeur Sanders thing is smoke. And I honestly, and I could see why people would think that, especially this early in the process, because the Giants seem to be super vocal about it. I mean,
they're tipping their hand.
Beyond obvious, they have gone to several Colorado practices. Brandon Brown's gone to several Colorado practices. They've talked individually about Shedeur Sanders, how much they love him, how much they love his family. So they haven't beat around the bush at all. You look at the Titans, you look at the Browns, they're kind of being more secretive. So the Giants have made it known. But I honestly, in my heart of hearts, believe, Bad Dog, I think the Giants are trying to make Dion and Shedeur comfortable with him coming to the New York Giants. I really do believe that. I think this is going to happen. And I think they're doing their best to sell Deion Sanders that he thinks that this is going to be the ideal place for his son to play football. That's what I think this is.
Anthony, you think that any of this is smoke? Or you think they genuinely love Shedeur Sanders, and that's the guy that they absolutely want?
I think they do love Shedeur Sanders, but I do agree with Chris. And I think all of the attention that this has gotten with them chatting with Shedeur, with them going to the practices and everything, I've said this before, I think they were building a rapport here so that, we've heard the conversations before. I mean, Deion's even said it publicly, very recently, in fact, that there are certain teams that he'll step in and he'll intervene with, and he won't let his sons play for specific franchises. The Giants are just making sure that they're not going to be one of those teams that he says no to. So building a rapport, that's what I think has been happening. I'm glad you brought up the McCarthy thing, though, because we actually on Fireside Giants talked about this topic today, and I brought up the McCarthy thing. And there were a bunch of people in the comment sections telling me I'm crazy, that didn't happen, and that the Giants never made it seem like they were going to draft McCarthy. And I was like, I think people just forget. I think they have short-term Dory memory. I think after the draft ends, everybody just forgets what the whole draft process was like, because I distinctly remember the big deal that was made about the Giants interviewing JJ McCarthy on Easter Day last year. That was a huge talking point. That was when everybody said, oh man, they're definitely going to draft this kid. Everybody in the comment section on Fireside Giants was telling me that didn't happen or wasn't a big deal.
That's I will say, I think it's more possible that was smoke than this is, in my opinion, because I was always of the belief it's at least possible they're trying to ensure they get Malik Neighbors or whoever they have as their BPA non-quarterback in that situation, knowing they're not going to get the top three, knowing that Minnesota's enamored with him. Like, Minnesota was as outspoken about McCarthy as we have been about Shedeur Sanders. Like, everybody and their mother knew that the Minnesota Vikings wanted JJ McCarthy. I do think they definitely had some interest, though. I'm not downplaying that for the New York Giants, but I at least see more legitimacy to the theory of smoke with McCarthy last year, trying to potentially force Minnesota to jump up to 5 and ensuring yourself that you get Malik Neighbors at 6. So that made more sense to me. This time around, I don't think it's smoke at all.
I agree with you because I think it makes more sense because that was all the way in April. I don't think there's smoke that there's no fires being put together. It's January, it's January, February. Not until we get to the combine do the smoke screens really begin. Like, even we're talking about the Titans saying this or the Browns saying that, they're not setting smoke screens. All of what everybody's been saying, what the Browns were saying, what the Titans were saying, what the Giants are saying, all of them are basically just saying we're doing due diligence. We are looking at this option. We are looking at that option. We are considering Shedeur the same way we considered McCarthy, same way we considered trading up for Drake May, and it didn't happen. We also considered Rome Odunze. It's due diligence. That's all that I think is happening right now for the New York Giants. I don't think there's a major takeaway from Joe Schoen saying Shedeur Sanders checks all the boxes. He's a good kid, and I like his dad. I don't think there's really much to that. I think it's just, I mean, who else is going to disagree with that? That's what all of them are going to say because they want all of the options on the table as they go through the process and do their due diligence for the next 3 months, which is a long time and there's a lot of work to be done. So that's what I think it is. I don't think it's smokescreen. Again, I just think that they're doing their research and they're doing it to the greatest capacity that they can. Also, keep in mind, they've gone to several Miami practices. They have gone to several Miami games. Nobody talks about that because it's not as publicized. And a lot of the reason why it's not as publicized, Cam Ward doesn't have a personal videographer. Shedeur does. He's got a guy following him around with a camera everywhere he goes. He's got a podcast.
And his dad's not Deion Sanders either.
Exactly. Cam Ward's just Cam Ward. This is Sanders. This is son of Prime. So there's just a greater spotlight on Shedeur and on Colorado football in general. And that's what all this comes from. But again, the Giants are doing their due diligence. They're meeting with these players. They're meeting with Shedeur just as much as they're meeting with Cam and everybody else, in my opinion. I don't think it's smoke. I think it's just the media running with certain narratives and fans as well. And it's because we're excited. The Giants might draft a quarterback. Of course, we're going to run with everything. We're excited. But I don't think that our excitement actually dictates the truth. I think that everything is a lot less intense than what it truly is behind the scenes versus what the fans think.
Yeah, the optics can certainly make it look like they're just interested in Shedeur Sanders, and it's a given that they want him. The other thing I would say is, if they really do want Shedeur Sanders, and that is their guy, Anthony, does it worry you at all that they're so vocal about this? And the Raiders are very interested as well, and the Raiders need a quarterback. Does it worry you that another team could jump the Giants, or does it worry you that the Giants are afraid someone might jump and they might jump to number 1 and give up another first-round pick? I mean, that's kind of what scares me, I guess. Not that I would care like the Raiders, because I want Cameron Ward. So if they jump to Shedeur Sanders, I'd be fine. But does it worry you at all that somebody else might say, we got to get ahead of the Giants because we want Shedeur Sanders?
So again, I think keep in mind the process and the amount of time between now and April. It's worrisome right now because we feel like this is who the Giants want, and they're sitting at 3, so there is an opportunity for somebody to get in front of them. Then what if a month from now, let's just throw this out there hypothetically, the combine happens and we hear Shedeur did terrible on his Wonderlic test or whatever they call it now. He had terrible interviews and the New York Giants don't like him. Then we're going to be saying, oh, okay, that could be smoke. Maybe the Giants are putting it out there that they don't like him so that he does fall into their lap. Or maybe they really don't like him and they really want Cam Ward. It's all rumors and all of it's technically smoke. It's all smoke and mirrors right now. And again, it's just because they're going through the process and doing due diligence. So it doesn't worry me because first of all, you can't even make trades right now. Teams aren't making trades. They're not going to until free agency. So I'm not worried about anything because I don't think any of these conversations have begun. I don't think the Giants have yet talked about trading to 1 or 2. I don't think the Raiders have talked either. Exactly.
They usually start.
Once we get to the combine, then we could start to worry about the smoke, the perceived smoke. But right now, I'm not worried. And again, narratives change overnight and they change over and over again. So right now, the narrative is that the New York Giants are head over heels for Shedeur Sanders. It absolutely, hypothetically, could change. Maybe they don't like him at all and they've been locked into Cam Ward the whole time a month from now. I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. So there's nothing to worry about right now in January, February until we get to the combine and some of those more legitimate rumors come out because that's where those GMs are in the same place talking. Right now, I mean, I guess, the Senior Bowl, whatever, it's not legitimate until we get to the combine, in my opinion.
Makes sense. I mean, it's just crazy, man, that this stuff happens. I don't know, man. You never know. It is crazy season without question. It's crazy. And yeah, like you said, Anthony, the closer we get, the more stuff you're going to hear without. But Dable, they're obviously going to draft. Well, they're obviously going to draft the quarterback, but they are going to interview a lot of these quarterbacks. They're going to interview Milroe, Dart. They're going to interview all these guys because there's a possibility they don't get either Shedeur Sanders or Cameron Ward too. So there's a lot.
The other thing I'll bring up about Joe Schoen's draft history, being that we're talking about like smoke or potential smoke, he has been the easiest GM through 3 years to mock draft for since the New York, between him and Gettleman, since I've been doing mock drafts. All you have to do is look at Joe Schoen's top 30 visits. All of his picks are going to be on there. Like every draft he's in, his top 30 visits, 5 out of the 6 guys he's going to draft are going to be in those top 30 visits. So I don't think Joe Schoen's really a guy that, at least to date, has had much of a reputation for a guy that throws out smoke. I think he's pretty cut and dry. Like I think what he's hinting towards is what he's usually going to do.
All right. JJ, and thank you, my friend. I really like Cam Ward, and I pray he's there. I know Anthony and I agree with you. I don't really know where Chris is on.
Listen, I'm of the mindset that I'll be honest. I prefer Shedeur Sanders, but it's not like I clearly understand why fans prefer Cam Ward. I think he makes more big plays. He's an exciting quarterback. He makes something out of nothing. When I look at Shedeur Sanders, I see a more polished quarterback. I think his footwork is incredible for a guy of his age. Like, he looks so smooth, man. When you watch him play at Colorado, he's a much more polished quarterback. But I'll be happy with either one. At the end of the day, I don't make this decision. The general manager makes this decision, and I'm just going to hope he picks the right quarterback. I'm not flipping out if they take either one of these guys. I'd be fine and happy with either one. If they take Jalen Milroe at 3rd overall, I'm going to snap my computer in half. As I said,
we talked about that one already.
But if they take one of these 2 guys, I'll be completely fine with it. And my mindset, Bad Dog, is I really, truly believe, and maybe I'll be dead wrong on draft day, I think this has as much to do with Deion Sanders as the New York Giants. I really, really, truly believe Deion Sanders is going to force him to the New York Giants. I don't, and knowing that, if Tennessee or Cleveland's going to take a quarterback, they're going to take Cam Ward. So that's why I really believe the Giants are going to end up with Sanders more so than anything else.
Yeah.
I have a question for both of you about Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, just because on Fireside Giants, I got into a very spirited, is how I'm going to describe it, debate with Alex today about the 2 prospects. He argued that Cam Ward is a significantly better athlete than Shedeur Sanders. And I said, I think that they're very close. I don't think the gap is that wide.
I was surprised. Now the thing, Cam Ward is really impressive in terms of his quick
Arm
thinkability.
strength for me.
He
with
kind of reminds me of not obviously as a physical skill set, but kind of like Bryce Young as a prospect when I watch him at Alabama in terms of he thinks quick on his feet. And when I saw that with Bryce Young, like he does that kind of like Pat Mahomes. He's like that too. So I see that with Cam Ward. Like I remember we were streaming a game together, Bad Dog, and Cam Ward was able to like somehow come up with this like shovel pass when he had like three guys on his back.
He improvises a lot.
He improvises
great improviser.
very, very well. Like I think that's his biggest strength, more so than anything else. He's got really good arm strength. I'm not downplaying that, but I was actually surprised when I watched Cam Ward, Anthony. I thought he was going to be more athletic than he is. His running ability doesn't impress me. Like that's one thing I don't understand. People use that as a knock against Shedeur Sanders. I think Shedeur Sanders is just as athletic as Cam Ward is.
I don't think he's just as, but it's close enough. It's a negligible difference in my opinion. I think they're very similar athletes. Like I agree with you. The way that people talk about Cam Ward, you would think he's breaking tackles all the time and he's ripping off 40-yard runs. I think his longest run this past season was like 22 yards. The way people talk about Cam, they think he's like some supreme athlete. I mean, he has very similar rushing statistics to Shedeur Sanders, and I think very similar athletic profiles. So I was just curious to hear your guys' perspective as well, just because
I was underwhelmed with his athleticism. Not that I think he's a poor athlete, but from what people,
I don't think either of them are poor. I think they're both good enough athletes.
They're both good athletes. So. I think Shedeur Sanders is underrated as an athlete.
Agreed.
But I was expecting Cam Ward to be like Lamar Jackson athletically before I watched him. From what people said and what I read, he's a good athlete, but I don't view him as like a Lamar Jackson or a Jaden Daniels in the open.
No, if he was, he would be. If he was, he would have been.
He would be
the clear cut number one.
Yeah.
So I don't even think he's at like a Josh Allen level though. Like I think Josh Allen's a way better athlete than Cam Ward. I said that he was closer to maybe Dak Prescott or even.
That's a good comparison.
Yeah, I think Dak's a good comparison to him, and I think when Ben Roethlisberger was young, he actually did a lot of similar things to Cam and had some decent athleticism earlier in his career. So I said those would be the more similar comps than a Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen's way more athletic. So
yeah, I don't think Cam Ward's a great. For me, it was more his arm strength and his improvisational skills. I love the fact that the guy can make something out of nothing and is always looking downfield. He's always looking to make the big play. And yeah, he's going to make some mistakes, but I'll live with that, man. I'd rather have a guy take some shots. We all know Eli was a gambler. We all know what Eli could do. Cam Ward's a winner, and that's, I'm not saying Shedeur Sanders isn't a winner. I mean, look at how good Colorado turned. Colorado was disgusting before they got there. I mean, they were an embarrassment. Now they're competitive. And if Shedeur Sanders knows anything, he knows how to play behind a very poor offensive line, which that was my thing on Twitter. I don't care which one of these guys they take. They better freaking get that offensive line fixed around these guys, man, because you're setting up a young quarterback for failure if you can't protect him. I don't give a damn who he is. So they got to get that in order as well. We all know that's been difficult for the Giants to do for about 10 years now. AH50, thank you. He says, the first time I ever seen a late hit on a running back called, that was the Barkley thing. Those plays happen all the time. When Saquon was on the Giants, he took those hits all the time. The reps were helping out the Eagles. Go Chiefs. I was streaming that game. It wasn't against the Commanders. It was against the Rams. He was tackled. He was getting tackled in bounds, and they threw him down out of bounds, and they called a 15-yard penalty. And I'm like, that is such crap. I mean, that's crap. Now, the one against Washington, he was hit late out of bounds. They did hit him late out of bounds there, but that game against the Rams, that was crap. I've never seen a running back start to get tackled in bounds. He gets tackled out of bounds, and they throw a flag. That's ridiculous.
Superstar treatment.
That's what it is.
He didn't get while he was a Giant, but superstar treatment.
No, I mean, none of the. I mean, Eli didn't even get that, and Eli was a superstar, man. They'd spear Eli right in the chin. No, I didn't see nothing you seen. No, Eli's freaking helmets over here, face mask, pull up, blood trickling on his face. What happened, Eli? Did you fall? I didn't see anything. Stupid.
Eli was too reserved. He wasn't animated enough. Like, he refused to call for the flag, so he wouldn't get the calls. I want to say, though, just on the topic of Saquon, just because it's, I don't want to talk about him anymore, but he keeps getting brought up. The last thing that I want to say about
next
Saquon,
year, Anthony. I think next year I think it's done.
I think it'll cool off next year as well. But I want to make my bold prediction for the Super Bowl, and it's about Saquon. I put it on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw it. I think regardless of who wins that game, Saquon Barkley is going to be the Super Bowl MVP.
I did see that.
Whoa.
Even if they lose, I think he's going to go for 2 touchdowns. It's happened. like
Chuck
50
Howley
years
in
ago,
Super
like a
Bowl
long
V.
time ago, but it's happened.
Chuck Howley in Super Bowl V. Because they named the MVP before the Cowboys turned it over right at the end of the game, and then Jim O'Brien kicked the field goal. Yeah, I know my Super Bowl history very well.
That's pretty good. That's good.
Something I know very well. But yep, that's what happened. They had already picked it before that last field goal. So he had Chuck Howley had a couple interceptions in that game, and nobody really did anything.
I'm going Pat Mahomes MVP. I'm playing it safe.
I hope so. Listen, man, I bought a Pat Mahomes rookie before the year started, saying this guy three-peats. This thing is it's already doubled in value. I'm like, let it triple in value. I did the same thing with Tom Brady stuff. Although I bought Tom Brady when he was worthless, no one knew who he was. That Mahomes still cost me some cabbage, but it's worth more than it was when I bought it. So go ahead, win, Pat. I like Pat Mahomes, and I love Andy Reid. So I don't like Travis Kelce very much, but I have no problem with any other Chief. So
what's not that? Why don't you like Kelce? Kelce's fine.
Mr. Swift. Yeah, I don't like that guy. He's an asshole. I don't like him. Larry, thank you, bro. He says Joe Schoen is so focused on analytics, numbers, and positional value that he loses focus on morale, welfare, culture, best play available, and depth. Just my 2 cents. Do you guys agree? Too analytical.
I would agree with the majority of it. I really do believe the BPA narrative. I'm not saying I completely disagree when people say that he drafts for need. I think it's a bit overblown. I really do. I think it's a bit overblown because I think the Giants have needs all over. And I think you can make an argument with his early picks since he's been here. You could at least make an argument that those players were the BPA. John Michael Smith, you could certainly argue, was the BPA where he was picked. You could certainly argue Jalen Hyatt was the BPA where he was picked. You could certainly argue Deontay Banks, Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal. Not all these guys have worked out. Most haven't. But you could make an argument that they were the BPA. So I personally think that argument's a little bit overblown.
Wandale wasn't.
Yeah, Wandale's fair. Josh Azudu's fair. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm completely saying that I disagree with that narrative, but I think it's a little bit overblown. But where I will agree completely is what he said about the I think that's his biggest weakness thus far. I think he's thought too much like a calculator. He's been too analytical, and he needs more of a happy medium. He needs to balance it out a bit. So I completely agree with underselling the importance of a locker room, especially this past year.
I agree with that. I think on the BPA thing that you were kind of discussing, though, you said this, I think, a couple episodes ago where you mentioned you feel as though he more meshes BPA and need. Like the BPA at the time is kind of a need. And so
early on,
I think, I think, I don't know if you were saying that's the strategy you think they should take, or if you're saying that's a strategy that the Giants do take. But I think you're right, and that is kind of what they like to do. I wish that they would take a little bit more just straight BPA. Like I am more of just take the best player regardless of the need rather than meshing it. But again, like I talked to Alex, and he's kind of on your side where meshing it is better. So I kind of see both sides of that argument. I think that the focused on analytics thing is a positive personally. Analytics and numbers. I mean,
I do too, but I think there's more of a happy medium. I think he does it a little too much.
I mean, I think the problem is I feel like analytics has become such a buzzword, and it's like, how does each team define it? Because it's different. Like people would say that Bill Belichick, I mean, he would say to the media, I don't use analytics, but like he clearly did because what he was doing favored analytics. It's just he had a different way of looking at it. So I think the analytics thing is subjective. I don't think it's just a one word fits every situation. And then the positional value thing, I also agree, like he should take into account positional value. I think it's very, very important. However, he just needs, like you said, Chris, to worry more about the welfare and the culture in the locker room and blend the two.
There's a balance. You can't. It's like anything in life. You can't exclusively do it. You have to balance it a little bit. I think it's important, like you said, to have a general manager that recognizes positional value. There's a reason that edge rushers, quarterbacks, and offensive tackles and lockdown corners are the highest paid players in the NFL and wide receivers because they're the most important positions. So it is clearly important to prioritize those positions early in the draft, like Joe Schoen has done. Edge rusher with Kayvon Thibodeau, offensive tackle with Evan Neal, cornerback with Deontay Banks, wide receiver with Malik Neighbors. He has done that. So I think that is important, and I think that is a good thing. But I think there's also a balance where if you have an impactful player like an Xavier McKinney, who's 25, 26, and obviously this isn't hindsight because I know you killed him for it, Anthony, and you look really good right now. I didn't kill him for it. I wasn't for letting him go, but I didn't kill him for it. I understood why they let him go. In hindsight, they should have absolutely kept him. And I think that there is a balance, and I think he needs to get better with that 100%.
John, thank you. I actually skipped ahead to this one because I wanted to ask you guys this when we were talking about Ward and Sanders. Do you guys think Ward or Sanders go and run at the combine? Obviously, they're going to be the first two quarterbacks off the board. They're probably not going to be able to increase their draft stock anyway. Do you think they're going to sit it out?
No, yeah, I don't. Well, what I will say, maybe they will surprise us because they did play in the bowl game, which was not a playoff game. I was shocked. When I heard that Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward were going to play in those bowl games. So maybe they will. Yeah, but traditionally speaking, when you're a quarterback who has a lot to lose and not a lot to gain, which those two do, there's not much for them to gain. Like, they're clearly going in the top 5 picks in this year's draft. You usually, err on the side of caution. We saw Baker Mayfield partake in it, and that probably helped him in that draft class because the other guys didn't. Josh Allen did, but I don't think Rosen did. I don't think Darnold did. So sometimes it could help you, but I don't feel like there's much competition with those two. So I don't really see much of a benefit for them to do it. Where I think the real value is for those two quarterbacks in particular is going to be the interviews, the chalkboard, like we saw last year with Hard Knocks. That's really important with the quarterback position. That's where I think they're going to be evaluated at the combine above all else.
And then the second part of that, pick the veteran quarterback the Giants go after in free agency.
Ooh, pick the veteran. I'd have to see the list again. I don't think it'll be Darnold. I know people have been throwing that out. Not in our budget.
Fields, Winston.
I people say Fields. Fields makes sense. I get it because of his upside. I think they're going to go more with a veteran because I think they're going to draft Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, and I think they're going to go more with a veteran that they feel will be a good mentor. That's my
like a Jameis Winston.
I'd have to see the list, but I think they're going to go more that route than the Justin Fields route.
Anthony, what do you think? You think they're going to partake in the combine, and who do you think the Giants are? What veteran quarterback do you think is going to be on the Giants?
Well, for veteran quarterback, I think everybody knows I really want Justin Fields. I think he makes the most sense and has the most upside and can win you some games. So that would be my pick if I were making the selection. In terms of them throwing at the combine, I actually don't think we can rule that out just yet because I get the argument that they might not have a lot to gain in most people's eyes, and they're probably both going in the top 5. But then again, if you read some of these other reports from the draft experts and insiders like Daniel Jeremiah, like Dane Brugler of The Athletic, a lot of them have been saying Shedeur Sanders has gotten a lot of second round or third round grades handed back to him. Like, he's not a slam dunk first round pick in the eyes of a lot of people in the league. Therefore, he might want to go and throw because I know we talk about, the Giants are going to take him at number 3 for sure. It's like absolutely going to happen. But again, that's the narrative now. A month from now, it might not be. And maybe he needs to do some work in order to solidify his selection at number 3 overall. Perhaps the New York Giants are doing all this due diligence on him because they're trying to see, what does the rest of the league feel? Maybe he's a pick for us at round 2. Who knows? Again, I know it's the narrative right now is that he's top 3 pick. Could change. So I actually think you can't rule it out just yet, at least for Shedeur, because I with just all the rumors of him having these day 2 grades from NFL scouts and teams, they might say, hey, we need you to throw at this combine so that we can solidify your grade and potentially put you in the first round. Sure. So I think there is an opportunity for him to throw.
You think Dion would have anything to do with him telling his son, you need to go out there and do that? You think
Dion's very competitive. He might say, I want you to go compete.
I think Dion would actually implore that he did that.
He had one of the greatest combines in NFL history, Deion Sanders. True. So, yeah, maybe. Possibly. I think they're smart, though. I think they're smart businessmen. I think they're gonna if they feel what Anthony said, it's necessary for the teams to legitimize him as a top 5 pick, they will do it. But if they feel that they're safe, that they know they're going to the Giants or the Titans or whoever in the top 5, he probably doesn't do it.
Age 50, thank you. He says, I know it's been talked about and we can't change it, but the Saquon Barkley thing has made Shane look bad after Sunday. I want him fired more. I'm fine with keeping everyone else, but fire this clown Shane. Go Chiefs. Well, I'm going to tell you, age 50, if they have another bad year, you're going to get your wish. The way I look at it is this, and I know, again, I think until the Super Bowl's over, there's gonna be a lot of talk about Saquon Barkley, but I kind of had a rant when I was doing the game on Sunday because people were talking about Barkley, and this is my feeling on it. Okay, I get that this sucks. I get that the optics are terrible. I get that he was our best player. He went to our most hated rival. Now they're in the Super Bowl. He's going to be an MVP candidate. Don't think he'll win it, but he'll be discussed. He rushed for 2,000 yards. He's a big. He had 3 touchdowns in the NFC Championship game. He's killing it. Understand? We can't do anything about it, man. Firing Schoen ain't bringing Barkley back. Nothing we can say is bringing Barkley back. Nothing's going to change things. He's on Philadelphia. He'll probably retire an Eagle. We have to let this go, man. We talking about this doesn't change anything. I get the frustration, but it's over.
I'm going to add to what you said, Bad Dog. There's plenty of reasons why I think it's legitimate to feel like they should have fired Joe Schoen. Plenty of reasons. That is not one of them, in my opinion. Now, could he have handled the Saquon Barkley situation better? Absolutely. And if he could go back in time, he probably should. And I was in favor of him extending him after 2022, after the playoff season. Probably, and who knows? We don't know if Saquon Barkley decides telling the complete truth either, if we're being fair. But if it was 2 or 3 more million guaranteed, yeah, he should have ponied up the dough. But that's not the reason. If you feel Joe Schoen should be fired, that should be like the 50th biggest reason. Because I still think it's completely understandable that the New York Giants didn't sign Saquon Barkley. Be honest with yourself. If the Giants signed Saquon Barkley, is he rushing for 2,000 yards? Is he averaging 1 million yards a carry?
Are we in the NFC Championship game?
Are we winning more than 6 games this past year? The answer is no. We saw him as a New York Giant. He averaged 4 yards a carry here, and it wasn't because he wasn't good. It's because the Giants had a horrible football team. It didn't make sense this offseason to sign Saquon Barkley. It hurts that he's a Philadelphia Eagle. I get it. I hate seeing him in the Super Bowl. There's plenty of reasons that I'm sure Anthony will tell you why you should fire Joe Schoen. In my opinion, this is not one of them.
We're 25-48-1 with Barkley here. 25-48-1. That ain't good.
Yeah.
Go on, Anthony.
Yeah, the offseason to use as evidence to fire Joe Schoen is actually the 2023 offseason, not the 2024 offseason. It was the decision then to not extend Saquon Barkley, not this past time.
Yeah, that's what I said after 2023.
No, yeah, I agree with you. But like fans point to this past offseason, oh man, what a mess. He screwed up everything. It was the year prior that he screwed up everything, and he was trying to clean up the mess this past season, and he overcalculated, and he messed it up further. But the 2023 offseason, when he signed Daniel Jones, that's when he essentially, there was, if you actually boil down those 2 contract negotiations that he had with Barkley and that he had with Jones, they both wanted the same things at different price tags. Jones wanted a few more millions in guarantees, and Barkley wanted the same thing. Neither one of them wanted to be on the franchise tag. They ended up choosing the quarterback over the running back, but they, in that instance, should have gone with the running back. And that's kind of a tough pill to swallow because common practice, analytics, positional value tells you go with the quarterback. But they wanted the exact same contracts. They wanted the same structuring, just at different price points, one for quarterback, one for running back. He just messed it up. He didn't get the quarterback right, and that's why we're in the mess that we're in.
He had the right plan, but he didn't follow through with it. His plan was clearly to extend Barkley and tag Jones, or at least use the tag as leverage against Jones. Once he was unable to sign Barkley, he no longer had that leverage with Daniel Jones with the tag because Jones knew it was $10 million. It's a lot easier to build your roster than taking a quarterback at 32. Knowing that, Schoen, and again, I hate to speak in absolutes because we don't know the full story with the Barkley contract. Barkley's always going to try to look like an angel. Like, for all we know, Barkley was asking for $30 million guaranteed. It came out he was asking for like 23, 24. If that's true, Schoen should have done it. But I hate that we don't know. But if that is true, I completely agree. The better, even without hindsight, that was clearly Joe Schoen's plan. That's what he wanted to do. I think that's what most Giants fans thought in an ideal world was the best situation. Extend Barkley on a reasonable deal and tag Daniel Jones. He tried to do it, but once Saquon Barkley played hardball, it didn't work out, obviously.
And he fired his agent over that. Remember that.
Yeah.
He fired his agent over that. So, because they miscalculated the market. And depending on the report you read, the Giants offered him 3 years, $42 million. That was like the highest one I saw. He said he didn't want to reset the running back market, but then it also came out that he was asking for more than Christian McCaffrey. I mean, who knows? I mean, it's he said, she said. We're not in negotiations. We can only speculate what we read, and everybody has their own side of the story. There's 2 sides every story. So, Hot Nicks, thank you, bro. If both quarterbacks bowled us at 3, who should we take? Cam Ward?
The better one.
Cam Ward.
The
Anthony?
better
Cam Ward.
Cam Ward's my guy.
Shooter Sanders.
I'm rolling with Shador. Yeah, I don't think both will fall of the 3. I think there's going to be a quarterback in the top 2, whether it's one of the 2 teams picking or a team trading up.
Agreed.
But Shador, I'm sticking with it. He's my number 1 right now.
Davey, thank you. He says, is it possible Dart shoots up boards and becomes around 1 pick? I'll tell you this, if the Giants miss in their first round, yes, because the Giants are going to trade back up into the first round to get a quarterback. That's the way I look at it. But the way I look at this, Combine's everything. He could have right now. He's probably projected to be a early day 2, late day 1 quarterback. Anyway, that's probably where he is.
Probably,
if he has a great combine, he could easily shoot up the boards. The underwear Olympics means so much. He has a bad combine, he could fall back. But that is a guy that's going to be competing at the combine, no question about it, because he has things to gain there. So it's definitely possible. I don't know how far up he would shoot, but it's definitely.
I don't think I could see him getting where we are, but I could see him getting. If he has a good combine and he sells a team that in their system that he could be a really good quarterback, I could see him going like where Bo Nix did to the Denver Broncos, like mid-first round. I could certainly see that for him.
Yeah. Anthony, what do you think?
I think there's absolutely an opportunity for him to land in the first round. I think the combine is going to be huge for him, and I think based on what I've read, he's done a pretty great job boosting his stock this past week at the Senior Bowl. And we've seen games, the Senior Bowl game at the end of the week, we've seen quarterbacks go into that, win Senior Bowl MVP, and then get drafted number 6 overall.
Oh, the Giants.
So.
Stop. We don't need that. We closed that book, Anthony. That book's closed.
Close that book, but I think it's worth mentioning because a quarterback playing well at the Senior Bowl and then following that up with a great combine performance and great interviews, they can definitely boost their stock.
Anthony, was it your post?
First round.
Was it your post on Twitter that had something about the Giants, like a mock draft where they picked Jalen Milroe, where they picked somebody 3rd, and I said I saw a mock draft where the Giants took Daniel Jones 6th. Oh wait. Was that your thing? I retweeted or I was like, I saw a mock draft where the Giants took Daniel Jones 6th overall, and that actually happened.
I saw that. That was pretty funny. It was I think an article that I wrote based on something. CBS Sports released a mock draft where they had Jalen Milroe going number 3 to the New York Giants, and I wrote an article basically saying that was ridiculous. I think that's what you ended up responding.
Yeah, to. I was joking around about it.
I'll tell you what, we were in such denial leading up to that draft about Dan, not just you and me, Bad Dog, just like Giants fans in general, because looking back at it in hindsight, there was a lot of warnings like 2-3 days before the draft. I think Daniel Jeremiah, if I'm not mistaken, I went back and looked, he had the Giants taking him at 6th overall. And there was a number of reporters saying that it was going to happen. I think we just were like, there's no way. It's not happening.
Yeah, I was like, that's total BS. I didn't even know who the hell Daniel Jones was until 3 days before the draft. I had no clue who the hell he was. I never watched Duke football in my life. I never heard of Daniel Jones. Then I'm hearing these reports. I'm like, there was no way. And then there was a way. And then I became famous overnight when that happened. So I don't know, when you become the thumbnail for SI, you've I guess your reaction.
You made an ass out of yourself being a Giants fan.
I've been an ass for the last.
Me
12
too.
minutes.
I was in there too. We were both made asses.
Yeah, it was good. Not a good.
I guess we didn't look like asses because
I wish we did. I kept saying
like asses. Yeah.
I kept saying if we win the Super Bowl with Daniel Jones, they're going to show the Americans game and they're going to show our reaction. That was going to happen. If Daniel Jones ever wins a Super Bowl, you still might see that reaction. I don't think that'll ever go away. I think that's etched in time. But boy, I was pissed that night. Boy, I had an out-of-body experience. I remember my wife saying to me, she goes, "What's the matter?" I go, not that she knew. I'm like, they took fucking Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is a nobody.
I haven't listened to my rant really since I did it. I haven't gone back and watched it. But I feel, if I recall, I think I said that this is going to set the franchise back like 5 or 6 years.
You said Dave Gettleman should be fired. You broke your headphones. I remember all this stuff.
Yeah. So,
like I said, it's etched.
Sometimes the first instinct is the best instinct. And
I had an out-of-body experience that evening. I was so mad. JJ, and we'll end it with this. Thank you, bro. This is an awesome conversation. Go G-Man. It is, man. I love this show. I think it's a lot of fun.
By the way,
when we really get some news to talk about, it's going to be a lot more fun.
Thank you to everybody in this chat. I see John Kirk saying, come on, guys, there's 277 people in here, 75 likes. I want this channel to grow. You guys are doing a great job.
Yeah.
thank you to everybody for watching. We're gonna be honest with you guys. Before the show started, we're talking about we don't know what we're gonna talk about. There's not a whole lot to talk about right now, right? We're beating around the bush. There's small topics like Mike Kafka. The one thing I did want to bring up was Brian Dable's comments, reading between the lines a little bit. But when Brian Dable was asked about what he wants in a quarterback, he said that his number one trait was accuracy, which actually surprised me because Josh Allen, right? Like that's what he's known for. He said his number one trait that he looks for is accuracy and leadership. That makes me feel even stronger.
Shedeur Sanders.
Because that's Shedeur Sanders' strongest trait. Just reading between the lines. But just something I wanted to throw out earlier when we were talking about the quarterbacks. But there wasn't a whole lot to talk about, guys. You guys are here. You guys are still supporting us. We just like to come on here and talk football, man. So we appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thank you guys for all the support you guys always show. And I'm looking forward to really diving into the offseason after the Super Bowl. Once free agency comes, then there's going to be a lot to talk about. So I'm excited.
Absolutely. I had almost 300 live viewers in here. And that is amazing. It's a testament to how awesome this fan base is because you think about it, we are 3-14. It is the very end of January. There is not much. I can't talk today. Not a lot to talk about. Not much to discuss. But still 300 people at the end of January. Just think of what this is going to be at the end of March or right before the draft, when the fan base is rejuvenated and excited and ready to go, ready to get our hopefully franchise quarterback. But those are going to be some fun streams for sure. And before we go, Pete asks, Chris, do the Nick Sirianni impression. We'll get out of here.
When he did that, Anthony, during that Giants playoff game, I flipped out. I wanted, because the Giants were getting killed at the time. We were down by like 30 points, and I got to see this asshole look into my TV screen as the camera pans. I wanted to jump in my TV set and beat the ever-living shit out of him. I have never been more mad during a football game than watching him do that during that playoff game against the New York Giants. I can't stand that, man. He's my most hated man in the NFL.
Beautiful. I love it. I love the hate. People, you know what I love too? I am now getting the credit for being the biggest content creator hater of the Eagles. I wear that with freaking pride. I I do. You're a hater, bad dog. Was today your first day? You don't know that? Yeah, I am. With that said, we're going to get out of here. For Anthony, the entertainer, and the bad dog, we'll see you next week. Thank you guys so much for all your support, and go Giants. We out. Peace.